Dawn breaks slowly over Tennessee, spilling pale gold light across mist-soaked valleys and rolling hills that stretch toward every horizon. Rivers wind like ancient veins through the land, carving silent paths through forests older than memory. From above, the landscape looks peaceful, still, timeless, almost gentle. But beneath the dew-covered fields and hardwood canopies lies a truth far more haunting. Tennessee hides some of the oldest and most advanced mound complexes in North America, and many of them refuse to fit into the tidy boxes of official history. Some of these mounds are older than the cultures assigned to them, dating back to eras when no known civilization in the region should have had the population, engineering skill, or astronomical knowledge to construct them. Others stretch across ridges and plateaus in patterns that feel engineered, as though designed with purpose rather than merely built for ritual. Archaeologists call them earthworks, but their layout suggests something more: corridors, platforms, geometric alignments, and foundations that hint at lost architecture. Beneath the soil, ground-penetrating scans reveal shapes that should not be there: straight lines, buried walls, and chambers filled with sediment. For centuries, locals have whispered that Tennessee's hills hide ruins of civilizations erased before history began. Stories of forgotten peoples who carved the landscape long before the Cherokee, long before the Mississippian chiefs, long before any written record. Farmers turning their fields uncovered artifacts older than surrounding soil. Cave explorers found chambers that looked carved rather than natural. And throughout the state, mounds rise in clusters that resemble administrative centers, city complexes, or ceremonial hubs, not the scattered ritual sites archaeology insists they are. The calm southern landscape conceals an unsettling truth: beneath the soil lie structures built by people we cannot identify. As the morning mist lifts and the hills reveal their ancient silhouettes, one question rises with the warming air: who built Tennessee's mounds, and why did they vanish without a trace? According to mainstream archaeology, Tennessee's past unfolds in a smooth, orderly arc. It begins with Paleo-Indians, the earliest hunters who crossed the continent at the end of the Ice Age, leaving behind stone tools and nomadic camps. These groups gradually became the archaic cultures, building seasonal settlements along river valleys and crafting some of the region's oldest pottery. From them emerged the Woodland peoples, credited with the first mound-building traditions, small earthworks used for burials, rituals, and community gatherings. Finally came the Mississippian societies, known for their grand platform mounds, palisade towns, and complex chiefdoms. This progression forms the foundation of Tennessee's official archaeological narrative. Each period fits neatly into the next. Each culture evolves logically from the one before. Each mound is assigned to a known people, a clean chronology for a complex land. But beneath this polished timeline lies a tangle of contradictions that Tennessee's hills refuse to hide. Some of the state's mounds appear to be far older than the cultures linked to them. Radiocarbon dates and soil strata at certain sites suggest construction phases that predate Woodland or Mississippian societies by centuries, occasionally by millennia. In a few cases, the foundational layers of a mound are older than the artifacts found within it, implying that later cultures reused structures they did not originally build. Other sites show architectural precision unmatched by nearby mound complexes. Platform edges align with cardinal directions to a degree of accuracy early southeastern cultures were not thought to possess. Terraces form near-perfect geometric shapes. Some mounds are engineered with compacted layers and drainage systems far beyond the construction abilities attributed to their supposed builders. These anomalies stand alone, like signatures of a forgotten blueprint. Then there are the cultural breaks, abrupt gaps in the archaeological record where artifacts vanish, designs change, and settlement patterns shift without the gradual transitions science expects. Entire regions show sudden abandonment, followed by new mound-building traditions that appear without clear lineage. It is as if multiple timelines overlap, or collide, in the soil. When excavations uncover these inconsistencies, academic explanations grow cautious. Secondary use. Mixed layers. Uncertain attribution. These phrases maintain the neat narrative, even when the evidence suggests something far messier. But Tennessee's landscape resists being simplified. Its mounds, earthworks, and buried foundations hint at cultures not accounted for, builders whose identities do not fit the accepted sequence of Paleo-Indian, Archaic, Woodland, and Mississippian. The official timeline works on paper. But the ground beneath Tennessee tells another story, one the textbooks are not yet prepared to admit. Across Tennessee's rolling hills and quiet river valleys lie mound complexes so vast, so precise, and so enigmatic that they defy everything we assume about ancient North American societies. These aren't simple burial mounds or ceremonial hills. They are engineered landscapes, monuments laid out with astronomical precision, geometric intelligence, and architectural ambition that should have been impossible for the cultures officially credited with building them. The most famous of these is Pinson Mounds, a sprawling ceremonial complex whose scale rivals ancient observatories around the world. Its mounds are arranged with mathematical perfection, aligned to solstices and equinoxes with a precision that modern equipment easily confirms but archaeology struggles to explain. The central Saul's Mound towers nearly 70 feet high, one of the tallest prehistoric earthworks in the United States, surrounded by geometric formations and earthen pyramids arranged in patterns that suggest a deep knowledge of celestial cycles. Pinson's builders tracked the sun, the moon, and perhaps even star paths, yet the culture that built it vanished without leaving a written record, a known language, or an identifiable successor. Then there is Old Stone Fort, perched atop a high peninsula carved by the Duck and Little Duck rivers. At first glance, the site looks like an enormous defensive fortification. But no signs of warfare exist. Instead, the wall-like earthen embankments form a massive ceremonial enclosure whose entrance aligns precisely with the summer solstice sunrise. The entire complex appears engineered to frame the heavens, a ritual space of staggering complexity. Yet no tribe claims to have built it, and no archaeologist can fully explain its purpose. Farther southwest lie the haunting Shiloh Mounds, a Mississippian-era complex abandoned abruptly, not gradually, not after decline, but suddenly, as though its people vanished in a single generation. Houses were left empty. Ceremonial spaces show no signs of conflict or collapse. Archaeologists describe the site's abandonment as mysterious, but local stories go further, speaking of an ancient people who walked away from everything, as if warned or driven by forces older than historical memory. Even more obscure are the Carroll County Mounds, rarely discussed in public literature and barely documented in official surveys. Early maps show geometric layouts, unusual alignments, and multiple earthworks forming what appears to be a ritual center. Yet excavation data is conspicuously sparse. Locals claim the site once held underground passages or chambers sealed under tons of soil, stories dismissed as folklore but whispered with too much consistency to ignore. Today, much of the complex is covered by farmland and forest, with only faint traces of its original shape visible in aerial imagery. The engineering behind these mounds is nothing short of astonishing. Perfect cardinal alignments, NS/EW axes within fractions of a degree, earthen pyramids arranged in geometric patterns rivaling ancient Mesoamerican layouts, long corridors and platforms that function as astronomical sightlines, buried layers and chambers suggesting careful architectural planning. Such sophistication requires centuries of knowledge accumulation. Yet no culture in Tennessee's recognized timeline demonstrates the necessary continuity. Local legends fill the void. Stories speak of a forgotten people who built the great mounds for rituals, when the sky was different. Some tribes refer to ancestors who were not their ancestors, the old ones, the tall ones, the builders who vanished. These myths, often ignored by archaeology, may preserve fragments of a civilization whose identity was buried long before the first Europeans set foot in the region. When viewed together, Tennessee's lost mound complexes feel less like isolated ceremonial sites and more like the remnants of a disappeared empire, one that understood astronomy, geometry, engineering, and ritual architecture on a level the official timeline cannot account for. The soil remembers what history has forgotten. And Tennessee's mounds are starting to speak again. In the quiet forests of West Tennessee, far from highways and towns, rises a complex so vast and so deliberate that it stands among the greatest ancient earthworks in North America. Pinson Mounds covers nearly 400 acres, a sprawling ceremonial landscape of towering platform mounds, geometric embankments, and ritual fields aligned with astonishing astronomical precision. It is the second largest middle woodland mound complex in the United States, yet it remains one of the least understood. From above, Pinson looks less like a scatter of ritual mounds and more like a pyramid field, an engineered network of earth structures laid out according to a cosmic blueprint. The central monument, Sol's Mound, rises nearly 70 feet, its flanks oriented with cardinal exactness. Surrounding it are dozens of smaller mounds arranged in purposeful clusters, conical mounds, loaf-shaped mounds, truncated platforms, and long linear embankments. Their placement is anything but random. Multiple structures align with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar standstills, a level of celestial awareness far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to middle woodland cultures. And yet, for all its grandeur, Pinson offers no evidence of permanent habitation. No large village. No agricultural fields. No signs of long-term daily life. It appears instead to be a monumental space reserved for rituals, gatherings, or astronomical ceremonies, but of a scale that suggests a population far larger than the woodland cultures typically supported. Archaeologists have struggled to categorize Pinson for decades. Its features don't match defensive forts. Its layout defies simple ceremonial explanation. And its precision feels intentional in ways that cannot be ignored. One theory proposes that Pinson was the domain of an elite priestly culture, a specialized class of astronomer-shamans who traveled across the southeast maintaining a pan-regional ritual calendar. Another suggests that Pinson was a pilgrimage center, attracting distant peoples from what is now Ohio, Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi, a gathering place for grand ceremonial events or solstice festivals lost to time. More provocative theories whisper of a forgotten cult with advanced sky knowledge, one that predated the Mississippian mound builders and inspired later religious traditions. The alignments at Pinson are so precise, so mathematically clean, that some researchers compare them to observatories in the ancient world, Andean solar towers, British megalithic sites, even the archaeo-astronomical layouts of Mesoamerican cities. But the greatest mystery is not what has been found at Pinson, it's what remains hidden. Many of the mounds, including some of the largest, are deliberately unexcavated. Not because the land is inaccessible, nor because the structures lack significance, but because archaeologists fear disturbing something they do not fully understand. Officially, the mounds are left untouched to preserve cultural integrity. Unofficially, researchers acknowledge that excavations might raise more questions than answers, unusual artifacts, unexpected dates, or architectural features that challenge the accepted timeline of ancient America. Pinson Mound stands as a paradox, a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering built by a culture that, according to the official story, should not have been capable of such sophistication. Its purpose remains obscured by silence. Its builders remain unknown. Its precision remains undeniable. And deep within the forest, beneath layers of earth untouched for centuries, dozens of mounds still wait, unexcavated, unexplored, and forbidden. Whatever Pinson truly was, it was no ordinary ceremonial ground. It was a monument to a forgotten order, a sacred architecture written in earth and sky. Where two rivers carve a deep peninsula into the Tennessee landscape, their waters tumbling into a ring of waterfalls, rises one of the most haunting ancient structures in North America, Old Stone Fort. Despite its name, this is not a traditional fort, no weapon placements, no defensive towers, no signs of warfare. Instead, the site feels ceremonial, otherworldly, as if its builders shaped the land not for battle, but for the sky. Encircling the peninsula is a massive earthen wall, nearly a mile long, studded with large stones and rising at points like the remnants of an ancient megalithic barrier. The wall does not defend anything. It orients. Its primary gateway, a narrow, precise opening, frames the southwestern solstice sunset with astonishing accuracy. Stand in the entry path on that day of the year, and the sun sets perfectly between the ridges, illuminating the interior like a celestial spotlight. This alignment is too deliberate, too perfect to be an accident of prehistoric engineering. Within the enclosure are long ceremonial walkways, narrow passages flanked by stone shapes resembling collapsed standing stones or intentionally placed megaliths. Archaeologists debate their purpose. Some argue that Old Stone Fort was a gathering site for seasonal rituals. Others see astronomical sophistication, an observatory hidden inside a natural amphitheater of cliffs and rivers, where sound and light behave like tools for ceremony. A few researchers whisper that the site may have been used for sky rites, rituals designed to track the heavens through shadow, water reflection, and sunlight. Indigenous legends reinforce the mystery. Cherokee traditions speak of strange ceremonies performed by an earlier people, rituals involving night fires, movement of stars, and sacred watchers who lived along the rivers. Some stories describe the people before us conducting rites at high places where water meets sky, a description that matches Old Stone Fort's geography with eerie precision. These beings are never named, never described in detail, but always associated with stone, sky, and silence. Adding to the intrigue are persistent rumors of hidden chambers beneath the complex. Early settlers reported hearing hollow echoes when walking across certain sections of the ground, as if tunnels or stone-lined rooms lay below. Modern surveys hint at subsurface anomalies, pockets of empty space, geometric voids obscured by centuries of sediment. Archaeologists have not excavated these areas, citing preservation concerns, but the whispers continue: a buried chamber, a sealed ritual hall, or something older locked beneath the earth. All the while, the waterfalls roar around the structure, masking its secrets and drowning centuries of forgotten voices. Is Old Stone Fort a fort? A temple? An observatory? Or is it something older, something whose builders knew the solstice sun, the flow of rivers, and the cadence of the sky with a precision we still struggle to understand? In Tennessee's most dramatic intersection of land and water, the ancient structure stands silent, waiting, its secrets hidden in stone and shadow. Long before Europeans entered the southeast, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Shawnee carried ancient stories about the peoples who lived in Tennessee before them, cultures so old their names were lost, remembered only through mythic descriptions and whispered warnings. These tales are not simple folklore. They map eerily onto the state's largest and most puzzling mound complexes, suggesting cultural memories that may preserve the final echoes of a civilization erased from history. The Cherokee speak of the Tall Ones, a race of giant-like people who constructed massive mounds, stone embankments, and ceremonial platforms long before the Cherokee ancestors arrived. These beings were said to be powerful, skilled, and connected to the earth in ways the later tribes never fully understood. Some legends describe them as peaceful engineers, others as territorial guardians who eventually vanished, when the sky changed, a phrase often linked to ancient climate events. The Chickasaw carried stories of the stone men, mysterious travelers who appeared from distant lands and built temples and walls unlike anything the tribes themselves constructed. These stone men were not described as supernatural, rather, they were portrayed as an advanced people with tools, rituals, and knowledge foreign to the region. They used stone where local tribes used earth. They worked with geometry where others relied on intuition. And according to legend, they disappeared suddenly, leaving their monuments behind like graves of a forgotten empire. The Shawnee added to the mystery with tales of the first civilizers, beings guided by the sky, who taught early peoples about the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. These sky-guided builders were said to align monuments with celestial events and carve symbols into stone to mark cycles of time. Some accounts even place their sacred centers along the same ridgelines where Tennessee's mounds and earthworks now stand. Archaeology classifies these stories as mythology, narrative devices meant to explain the presence of ancient structures the tribes did not build. But the alignment between legend and landscape is difficult to ignore. The tall ones correspond to mound complexes with unusually large foundations and oversized tool impressions. The stone men echo the stone-lined enclosures, carved slabs, and megalith-like features found across Tennessee's highlands. The first civilizers mirror Pinson's solstice alignments and Old Stone Fort's astronomical gateways. Even the settlement gaps in the archaeological record, abrupt cultural breaks, sudden abandonments, and unexplained transitions, fit the timing of these oral traditions. It is as if multiple waves of ancient peoples rose and fell in Tennessee, their identities lost but their memory preserved through fragmented myth. The deeper we look, the less these legends resemble fantasy and the more they feel like distorted historical memories, echoes of real civilizations erased by time, climate, or conflict. And Tennessee's mounds, standing silent beneath centuries of soil and forest, seem to confirm what the stories have been trying to tell us all along. Across Tennessee's mound regions, scattered in riverbeds, farmland, and forested ridges, lie artifacts that official archaeology has never fully addressed, objects that appear, vanish, reappear in estate sales, or sit buried in university archives with labels like unclassified or no cultural attribution. These findings, gathered over more than a century, form a pattern too coherent, and too uncomfortable, to dismiss. Wherever Tennessee's most ancient mounds rise, anomalous artifacts follow. Some of the most striking are copper tools that appear centuries, sometimes millennia, earlier than metallurgy is believed to have existed in the region. Hammered blades, spiraled ornaments, and crescent-shaped pieces have surfaced near mound complexes where there should be no evidence of metalworking at all. Tests on a few surviving samples revealed unusual compositions, including traces of tin or arsenic, alloys that shouldn't be present in prehistoric Tennessee. Many of these tools were dismissed as trade items or contamination, yet no evidence shows they came from established copperworking cultures. Equally confounding are effigies with non-native facial features. These carved stone and clay figures often display elongated noses, high cheekbones, rounded eyes, or bearded chins, traits not characteristic of southeastern indigenous art styles. Some appear to depict foreign dress or ceremonial headgear. Several of these figurines were collected in the early 1900s, catalogued briefly, and then quietly transferred to storage rooms where they haven't been displayed since. Adding to the mystery are the polished stone spheres, perfectly rounded stones found in and around mound sites, often made from materials not native to the immediate region. Their craftsmanship resembles ritual spheres from Central America and Costa Rica, raising questions about cultural exchange or shared symbolic traditions. Mainstream archaeology calls these curiosities. But their deliberate form and consistent appearance near ancient mounds suggest something more meaningful. Then there is the pottery, designs that inexplicably echo South American and Mesoamerican patterns. Some shards display stepped motifs like those found in Andean textiles. Others carry serpentine spirals and crosshatch patterns reminiscent of early Mexican ceramics. These artifacts, found in Tennessee soil, appear long before such influences should have been possible. Rather than confront the implications of cross-continental connections, official reports tend to label them as stylistically coincidental. Most provocative of all are the carved tablets, fragments of stone or fired clay etched with symbols no scholar has matched to any known Native American script. Some resemble proto-writing, repeating symbols arranged in grid-like patterns. Others look like astronomical diagrams or ritual codes. These tablets, when mentioned at all, are described as problematic, isolated anomalies, or unlikely to be authentic. A handful disappeared into private collections, others rest in museum vaults under restricted access. The pattern is unmistakable: the oldest mounds produce the strangest artifacts, and the strangest artifacts almost always end up dismissed, hidden, or forgotten. Why? Because each discovery hints at a past broader, older, and more interconnected than the official timeline allows, a past of long-distance trade, migration waves, or even unknown civilizations shaping the Southeast long before recorded history. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes: Tennessee's forbidden artifacts don't merely raise questions. They threaten to rewrite the answers. As Tennessee's ancient mounds, forbidden artifacts, and legendary builders accumulate into a single overwhelming mystery, one conclusion becomes unavoidable: someone shaped this landscape with knowledge, precision, and purpose that official timelines cannot comfortably explain. Archaeologists acknowledge the anomalies but stop short of naming a lost culture. Yet the evidence, astronomical alignments, ritual complexes, unexplained artifacts, pushes us toward possibilities as vast as the hills themselves. One theory proposes a pre-Woodland civilization that possessed advanced astronomical knowledge. Long before Pinson mounds or Old Stone Fort, a culture may have mapped solstices, lunar cycles, and star paths using earth and stone. Their priest astronomers aligned ceremonial spaces with celestial events centuries before such practices appear in the archaeological record. This hypothetical civilization could represent an earlier chapter in North American history, one erased by climate shifts, migration patterns, or cultural collapse. Another possibility envisions Tennessee as the endpoint of a lost migration from Mesoamerica or the Caribbean. The parallels are striking: geometric mound layouts resembling Olmec and early Maya planning, pottery shards with non-local motifs, copper artifacts shaped like ritual items found farther south. Some researchers have suggested that seafaring peoples traveled through the Gulf and up the Mississippi River system, bringing traditions of astronomy, urban planning, and ceremonial architecture that later influenced or blended with local cultures. A third theory points to survivors of a prehistoric flood or geological catastrophe, perhaps linked to the end of the Ice Age or regional seismic upheavals. Oral traditions across multiple tribes tell of rising waters, great migrations, and civilizations swallowed by disaster. Tennessee's mound sites may be the remnants of communities rebuilding after cataclysm, retaining fragments of older knowledge even as their population scattered. This could explain sudden cultural breaks, one society falling, another rising in its footprint, borrowing but not fully understanding the mounds left behind. Some scholars explore the idea of an early seafaring culture that moved inland. Evidence of ancient coastal navigators appears along the Atlantic seaboard, and Tennessee's river systems could have served as prehistoric highways. If a maritime people ventured deep into the continent, they may have established inland observatories or ceremonial centers, leaving behind traditions of stone shaping, celestial tracking, and ritual engineering not found elsewhere in the region. Perhaps the most haunting theory suggests that Tennessee once hosted an ancient priest-astronomer caste, a powerful order responsible for building aligned mounds, conducting seasonal ceremonies, and maintaining a sacred calendar. When their society collapsed, through warfare, environmental change, or internal upheaval, the priests disappeared, leaving their earthworks behind like abandoned chapters in a cosmic text. The absence of habitation at sites like Pinson mounds only strengthens this argument. These were ceremonial landscapes, not cities. These theories become more compelling when Tennessee's monuments are compared to global patterns. Cahokia in Illinois shows pyramid-like earthworks on a scale rivaling ancient Mesoamerica. Poverty Point in Louisiana features concentric earth ridges whose function remains unknown. Andean earthworks echo Tennessee's alignments and ritual causeways. Celtic hill forts and enclosures share structural similarities with Old Stone Fort. These parallels suggest that mound building was not a single cultural phenomenon but part of multiple forgotten civilizations across North America, each with its own architectural language, each erased by time, and each leaving behind fragments that defy conventional classification. Tennessee fits into this larger pattern like a missing puzzle piece. Its mounds are older, more complex, and more astronomically aligned than they should be. Its artifacts show foreign or anomalous traits. Its legends describe peoples unlike any recorded tribe. Its sites sit on ancient river routes that could have carried migrants, traders, or refugees from distant lands. The truth may lie somewhere between these theories, or outside them entirely. Perhaps Tennessee was not home to a single forgotten civilization, but the crossroads of several: sky watchers, mound builders, travelers, survivors, priest kings, and seekers of sacred knowledge. Whatever the case, the landscape tells a story older than history. A civilization, or many, left their mark here, then vanished, leaving only the earth to remember them. For all their scale, precision, and undeniable archaeological value, Tennessee's most enigmatic mound sites remain strangely understudied, spoken of in academic circles only with caution, referenced in reports with careful detachment, and often filed under categories that avoid confronting the deeper mysteries. The silence is not accidental. These mounds occupy a shadowed space where science, law, and cultural sensitivity collide, creating a landscape where investigation becomes not just difficult, but forbidden. One of the most immediate challenges is that many of Tennessee's ancient mound complexes lie on protected land, including state parks, federal forests, and designated heritage sites. Excavation permits are rare, tightly controlled, and often denied outright. Digging into mounds risks disturbing burial grounds, sacred landscapes, and sensitive environmental zones, a combination that shuts down most modern research before it even begins. Even non-invasive technologies like ground-penetrating radar receive scrutiny, meaning large portions of these structures remain unexplored. Compounding this is the uncomfortable reality that some finds associated with the mounds contradict mainstream migration theories. If copper tools predate known metallurgy, if solstice alignments emerge centuries before documented ceremonial traditions, or if carved tablets show unfamiliar symbols, then the accepted timeline of North American prehistory must be revised, drastically. Few institutions are eager to open the door to such revisions. The fear is not only academic upheaval, but the possibility of fueling fringe narratives that distort indigenous history or promote pseudoscientific speculation. Federal law adds another barrier. The Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, restricts excavation or handling of sites connected to ancestral burials. While vitally important for cultural respect and protection, it also means that many mound interiors, especially those believed to contain chambers, cannot be opened. Archaeologists tread carefully, often choosing to avoid sites that risk legal and ethical conflict. As a result, structures that might contain encoded rituals, astronomical markers, or even architectural blueprints remain sealed beneath centuries of soil. And behind all of this lies a deeper academic resistance, the fear of rewriting U.S. ancient history. Recognizing that Tennessee's mounds may predate known cultures, or represent lost civilizations with advanced knowledge of astronomy and engineering, would destabilize long-standing models of cultural development. It would require acknowledging that indigenous oral traditions about the first builders, or the old ones, may preserve real histories. And it would force academia to confront decades of assumptions built on incomplete excavation and selective research. So the caution grows. Careers, grants, reputations, all depend on staying within the accepted narrative. It is far safer to say a mound is ritualistic, ceremonial, or culturally ambiguous, than to investigate the anomalies embedded within its structure. Meanwhile, the physical evidence persists. Layers of compacted clay engineered with unknown methods. Geometrically aligned platforms untouched by plows. Radar scans hinting at sealed chambers large enough to walk through. And strange voids, underground spaces where something once stood, or still stands. Some researchers quietly admit that certain mounds may contain structures too controversial to unearth, architectural forms or artifacts that would complicate both indigenous sovereignty and academic orthodoxy. Others suggest that the mounds might house fragile chambers that could collapse under excavation, presenting real danger to anyone who tries to enter. And so the hills remain silent. Untouched. Unopened. Forbidden. But the earth does not stay quiet forever. And Tennessee's mounds, with their hidden chambers and impossible alignments, feel less like relics of the past and more like sealed vaults, waiting for the moment when history is finally ready to hear the truth. Tennessee's hills rise softly, their curves shaped by millennia of wind, water, and quiet growth. To the casual eye, they are peaceful, green waves rolling toward the horizon. But beneath their gentle slopes and shaded forests lies an architecture older than tribes, older than recorded history, and perhaps older than the civilizations we believe were first to shape North America. These mounds are not random piles of earth. They are deliberate, aligned, engineered. They are memories the earth has preserved, long after their builders vanished. Every passing year uncovers more of that buried story. Storms peel away soil to reveal unexpected layers, compacted clay floors, stone-lined corridors, and symmetrical foundations hidden for ages. River erosion exposes platforms once thought mythical. LiDAR and satellite imaging reveal geometric patterns the forest tried to swallow: circles, causeways, astronomical sightlines, and ceremonial grids stretching across entire landscapes. The more technology advances, the more impossible it becomes to pretend these mounds fit neatly into our current narrative. Something happened here. Something sophisticated. Something ancient. Whether the builders were sky-watching priests, survivors of forgotten migrations, remnants of a pre-woodland civilization, or an entirely unknown people, the earth still carries their fingerprints. The alignments, the artifacts, the unexplained chambers, all whisper the same truth: Tennessee's mounds were not mere ritual hills. They were part of a system, a vision, a purpose that time has tried, and failed, to erase. And so the hills wait, their secrets locked beneath moss and root. They wait for the storms that reveal hidden angles. For the archaeologists brave enough to question old timelines. For the technologies that peel back the forest without disturbing a grain of soil. For a moment when history becomes flexible enough to accept what the land has been telling us for centuries. In the end, one haunting fact remains: these mounds were built for a purpose, and one day, that purpose may finally be revealed.